Well, well, well. We're going to remote connect some more over SSH. So the idea with this one is that we want to be able to do what we've been doing before, where that is SSH from this Linux Mint machine into the Ubuntu server. But we want to do it more secure, right? With Windows, you have Active Directory and LDAP backing you up, and Kerberos tickets and all of that kind of thing, backing you up for authentication and giving you additional encryption and all of that fun stuff. Well, in Linux, at least by default, you do have encryption. However, it's just password-based. We want to bolster that just a little bit by adding in keys. So these keys are basically just the rudimentary version of, if you're in the military, the CAC card, or really if you've ever seen any kind of additional type of authentication where you'll provide a username and a password and something else. That something else is going to be the key. So we have to move those back and forth from one computer to another, but it's actually fairly easy to do. You'll generate the keys on Linux Mint, copy over the public key to all of the machines you want to log into, and then you just log in. You can set it up. You can set up the logins to where you do need an additional password or not. The key itself will be the password for you. But there are more layers of security. There's more security to that onion that we can add on. So for now, let's just worry about getting the keys generated and put where they need to be, and then just let the key log us in. So all of that may not make sense just yet, but let me show you what I'm talking about. So you need a public-private key pair. Again, the public key is the one that you put everywhere. This is, if you think about like a master lock or something like that, this is the master lock itself. You can tell the manufacturer, hey, make me 100 of these master locks, and I want one key to get into them all. That makes your life easy, right? This is the exact same idea. This SSH keygen command is quite literally make me a master lock and a master key. And then you can copy that master lock everywhere you want. So first thing you do, SSH keygen, and I mean, that's what it'll do. It'll generate you a key pair. It's going to tell you where it puts it. This is extremely important. You kind of have to know this. You have to know where it's going. So this is the key itself. This is the master key. You can tell it to put it somewhere else. It's asking you right now. I'm going to put it here unless you tell me somewhere else. So this is typically fine. And if you didn't have a .ssh folder in your home folder, it's going to make you one. So keep that in mind. It's the same thing as here. This is just telling you that IDRSA is the name of the key itself, but this is going to be created because you need it. And this passphrase. So I was telling you that there were more layers to this onion. You can put a password on your key. That way your key is encrypted. So we don't have to do this yet because I'm more worried about you understanding how the key works than I am adding additional encryption to the key. So for simplicity's sake, we can skip this part. And the way to skip it is just hit enter. And then this has to match, just like a password. And then it's going to give you this. This cool little picture is basically just, here is the unique fingerprint. You can think of all of that gibberish there as quite literally a thumbprint. Everybody's thumbprint is slightly different. So if y'all generate your keys, you can compare your random image art or random art image. And you'll see that nobody's image is exactly the same. So basically, this is just like a, a checksum of your key. It'll be unique. So let's look, throw an A in there. We get our dot folders right there. So we have an SSH folder now, just like it told us we would. Let's go into it. And then we can see what's inside. And you have an ID RSA. So remember, it told you up here. ID RSA is your key. This is the lock. It reminds you that the lock goes everywhere. Anybody can see it. Anybody can touch it. Anybody can look at it. Anybody can test it. Anybody can try to authenticate against it. None of that stuff will work or matter. But the idea with that is that there's an ID RSA .pub. That is important. That pub stands for public. Just like when you put a master lock on your shed, anybody can start smacking on it, right? It is typically, and not always, but typically public-facing or public-facing in a way. And that's the idea here. This IDRSA.pub is the important bit that you will put everywhere. The one without the pub, now that one is the one that you keep close to the chest. You don't give anybody a copy of that. As a matter of fact, it may not be a bad idea to just delete it off of this machine. The good thing about this is that when you create these files, they already have the permissions that you want. So let's look at these real quick before we move on too far. So IDRSA, it's got permissions. Look at that. You gotta dig deep in your Linux memory to figure out what these permissions mean. But remember that it is user, group, other, right? And they go in threes. So the user on this one has read-write. The group has nothing, and the other has nothing. So only you, the owner, in this case the name is Mint, has the ability to use this, to be able to see this, change this. You don't really want to change it, but that is the idea. Then this pub, anybody can read it. I can change it because I own it, but the group and others can also read it, and that's okay. It's a public key, so you put it everywhere, right? All right. So the big thing that I really need you guys to be able to do is SSH in, right? So I'm obviously bad at documentation, so I don't know what the IP address is, but there we go. Okay, so I'm good. I can SSH in 16.200.2. Oh. There. Now it knows me. That fingerprint. By the way, I'm using a live version of of Linux Mint. I keep forgetting to install it after I'm done. So everything I have always gets lost every single time, which is why I have to do this fingerprint thing again. I'm basically using a brand new Mint every time, which it works, I guess. But yeah, you guys will not have that issue. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that I could SSH in, but SSHing in through the terminal, at least at this point, is not what I want. I do want to show you that you can SSH in other ways. So this is cool. File. Well, open up the folder here, the file browser. There you go. Connect to server, and then you can type in the same stuff. Come down here to SSH. Type in the IP address. Username. Do not let it remember your password. The magic gets spoiled if you do that. So type in your username and password, but do not let it remember your password. You will be so unimpressed if you do this, because the key takes the place of the password. Anyway, you connect up, and then there you go, a little network resource. And this is my home folder. So as Leo, I can create stuff. Oop. This folder, go over to Ubuntu itself. Right? There it is. Yay, this folder. So this is just like setting up a Windows share. It's way easier than doing a Windows share as well. But this is the idea. So it's very advantageous to have this type of connectivity. Having SSH running as a server on the devices that you want to swap files back and forth. And this answers that question. I know I've had that question all of the time. Where it's like, how do I move files from here to there? We had messed with, in the Linux course, we had messed with SFTP. I forced y'all to pull a file back, I think. I think y'all made a file on a computer and then you pulled that file to the machine, to the original machine. And this is kind of the same deal, but people are used to GUIs, man. People are used to having these interfaces where they can drag and drop and stuff like that. So this is the way that you would do it. Well, what I'm really getting at with all of this is that you really do need keys to make your life a little simpler. So what I'm really wanting you to do is do this manually. So we've got these keys, and we need to move them back and forth. I'm going to show you the absolute hardest way to do this. And by that, I mean, as long as you can copy paste text, you're golden. Let me warn you though, if you open up LibreOffice, this will not work at all. So make sure you're using a plain text editor. And by plain text editor, I mean type in text here, this one, right? Just a text editor. Otherwise, you're going to have a really rough time, and you're going to ask me why it doesn't work. So, in here, go to Show Hidden Files, or you can hit Control-H. It'll do the same thing. Because what I'm really looking for is I need to make a .ssh folder or just an authorized keys folder. Actually, both. I'm sorry. So, create it. Keep knocking that back. Stop doing that. So we need to create a .ssh folder. Remember, I'm in my remote machine. Look, root on the remote machine. It's good if you just have your host name in here. Home and then Leo. So I'm going to create .ssh. And then inside of that, well, actually, it might just be best if I do it through the text editor. So, save as, let's see, over here. Show hidden files in SSH. And you want to call this thing, let me double check on that. I'm pretty sure it's what it is. Yeah. Make sure it's just like that. No quotes, but make sure it is just like that. No spaces or anything like that. Authorized _ keys. Save that bad boy. Push that off to the side for just a minute. Now, in your home folder, right, we had created that .ssh folder. Well, automatically it got created. Show hidden files again. This is the local one. Notice Mint. I'm on my own home folder here in Mint. And the other is on the Ubuntu home folder. You want to take this and copy and paste the contents. That's pretty much it. Now, there's another way that you can do this, actually. So, what I was saying was this is the hardest way to do it. And it really, see, yeah, it opens up in LibreOffice. So I can totally get why you might end up in that. But if you see that, close it. Just close it. That's my public key, by the way. You can right-click on it and open with. And find the text editor. There it is. There's your key. Copy that. No. Okay, we'll do it with the mouse then. My Mac didn't like that. Oh, did I close my other one? Apparently I did. No. Oh, okay. It does let me select, which is nice. Oh, I'm silly. Look at this. It had tabs. Okay. So anyway, so this is, and notice, right? On the local machine, home folder, SSH, this is my idrsa.pub. And on authorized keys, this is Leo on the remote machine at homeleo.ssh. So this is how you can keep them separate. And then just paste that in there. Save it. That's the big thing. Now, if there's only one key, right? So this is on my Ubuntu machine. I have in the .ssh folder. This is the IDRSA pub that I had created. This is on the Mint machine. Actually, I don't know what I just said. But this is on the Mint machine. Sorry. If I said Ubuntu, I think I might have said Ubuntu. This is on the Mint machine. Notice there. This is the IDRSA pub that I had created right at the very beginning of this video. One way that you can do this as well is copy this file into this folder and rename it to authorized keys. That's another way that you can do that. That way, you don't typo or you don't have to deal with LibreOffice or anything like that. That's another way to do it. So the absolute manual way is the copy paste that I showed you. The slightly easier way to do that is right click copy, right click paste, and then rename. That will also work. And that's about it, really. That's pretty much the whole process. You got the authorized key over there. You still have your private key in your home folder on your machine as well. And that's pretty much it. It's really all you need to do to make all of this stuff work. So in Ubuntu's SSH, okay, we need to do one more thing. And then what I want to do is just, I'm going to do it here, and then I'm going to show you how it works. So let's go into SSH. Let's look at that. Let me see. Oh, okay, yeah, so we need to do a little permission work. So the SSH directory itself, let's look at that, has read, write, read, read. And we just want to strip off, oh, no, I'm sorry, I read that wrong. Read, write, X, read, and X. We want to change that to just read, write, X, and then nothing else. So 700 is that permission. And then, let's check it. Read, write, X, that's all there is. And then inside that directory, we want to change the file, authorized keys, to just read, write. And I've got the octal modes there, 700, what I just used, 600, what I'm about to use. So they're there. So we will chmod 600 authorized keys. Change that up and check it. Bingo, bango. Okay. Let me see. I can't remember if I'm on number 4. I'm asking you to SSH in or not. Oh, okay, you can do that. Oh, okay, I'm asking you to do that in the file browser. So I showed you how to do that manually. That's okay. As long as you can show me the permissions, I'm not too worried about it. But let me see. Oh, I had closed it. So here, view, hidden files, SSH. I'm just looking for these. You can show me here, or you can show me really kind of any way. So like that. It's a little odd. I think you can show it. Oh, you know what? Actually, one of the things that you can do is right-click and open in terminal. And that'll give you a remote terminal here, and then you can do stuff like that. Check out those permissions. That's an easy way to do it. I think you can also do it if you change this to list view. I think permissions is one of the things that you can add on to it. I always forget how to do that though. So anyway, just open this terminal and doing LSL. Well, LSLA for the .ssh because otherwise it won't show. So however you want to do it, so long as you can show me the permissions of your .ssh folder and your authorized keys file, that's really what I'm after. I need to be able to see that. I always forget how to, oh, visible columns, that's what it is. And then you can do permissions. And there they are. That's how you do it in the GUI. So that was view visible columns, and then just check the permissions box. And it'll show you over here all the permissions, right? So it's a directory, read write X for the owner. Inside, got to do the same thing. And then you can see it's a file and then just has read write. So if you want to do it in the GUI, that's fine. If you want to open up a terminal and do LSL or LSLA, you can do that as well. That'll work. Either way, just show me the permissions. All right. So one of the things that we need to do, as I said, you can open up a terminal. So, I mean, the whole idea with this is that you want to just do all your work from Linux Mint. Because if you just pop open your VM and start working on it like this, that is kind of akin to literally walking to the computer, logging into the computer, and working on it, where you leave your laptop behind that's running Linux Mint back here, and it's cumbersome. You have to walk back and forth and back and forth. Back in the day, we called that sneakernet. Was not efficient at all. So what I'm really after in this particular lab is for y'all to do all the work from one machine. So since we are remotely logged in, right? Open a terminal. And you're working on Ubuntu, right? So what I need you to do toward the end is basically turn off password authentication. You are basically saying, I no longer want anybody to be able to authenticate over SSH using a password. So I cannot type Leo and then my password to get into the machine. It will only expect keys. That's it. So if you don't have a key, you don't get in. So that was in the sudo nano etc sshd. There it is. Sudo nano etc sshd config _config. So let's get into that file. Now you will still use your password internally. Once you're logged into the machine, your password's still required. So you still do have to know your password and everything, but not to log in. So permit root login. This is another good one that you want to change. You want to change that to no, especially on Red Hat derivatives where it is essentially just your root is always available. The root user is always available. And on Ubuntu machines, you typically, or Debian-based machines, you typically don't have root available. But if you know root's available, you want to uncheck or uncomment this one like that. And then, yeah, this is prohibit password. Basically what it's saying is you can't use a password to log into root. You have to use a key, something like that. And then here we go. Here's the option, permit or password authentication. And you're basically just saying no. I do not want people to be able to log in with passwords at all. But you can see there's other options in here, right? This line here, permit empty passwords, is a real bad option to turn on, but you can turn it on if you want. Create users, let them not have passwords and then let them log into SSH without a password. That's not good. All you have to do is figure out what the username is, and then you can log in. Anyway, so save this file. And get out of this. And then you got to restart the service. Oh, no. It's the old way. Check on the status. And you can see it was just restarted 6 seconds ago. That's what you want to look for. Make sure it actually worked. The cool thing about restarting the SSH service is it doesn't kill the existing connections. That is fancy. So anyhow, we can, close all SSH sessions. And you do that with exit in the terminal. And you just, you eject it from here. So we have undone ourselves from all of the remote connections. All we have now is just my local connection to the local machine. So not remote at all. So here's the moment of truth. We'll find out if I blew it up. Well, I probably did. Walking and chewing bubble gum is hard sometimes, man. All right. So close all the windows and then SSH in again. You want to use your username, hostname, everything, right? So I'm going to be real basic and use the IP address, but you guys will be using the hostname that you set up in DNS. So SSH Leo at 172.16.200.2. I think that's right. Yeah. Ta-da! Did you notice? I didn't type a password in. That's the whole point. It used my key. And that is the magic. So really what I'm asking you to do toward the end here, okay, so it says SSH command, make sure all the output fits. What I mean by that is you see the command where I logged in, just make it big. Because I want to see this. Really what I'm looking for is this line. If it asks for a password, it happens right there, right in between those two lines. So if I see a password, it's wrong. You do not need to provide a password to log into the SSH session. If you applied a password on the key itself, that looks different. And that's fine. That's the idea. So log in here. It just needs to drop you straight in. And you're able to do that with any... Oh, let's just exit that for real. Let me make sure I don't need to do anything else. Oh, that's really all I need you to do. It should work. So yeah, you don't have to do this part. Exit again to close that window. You can also do it here. This is why I wanted you to get rid of it there. You can do connect to server 172.16.202. Oh, not public FTP. SSH. This is also why I told you not to remember the password. Cha-ching. Still works. But it uses keys now. Beautiful, beautiful keys. That is the real magic. And so every machine that you put your public key on, in the user that you want to log into, this will work. No password required. Just key. So when people say, how am I going to remember a super duper long password? How do I ever remember that? You don't. You figure out some way to deal with keys. So to kind of put this together, just wanted to show you. That's my password. That is quite literally my, well, actually here, let me see if I can do word wrap. Oh, it was. Oh, I see what it is. Okay, it really did wrap. So yeah, that's my password. The quad A is always there. So it says SSH RSA, and then underneath it says quad A. That stuff is always there. But the B3NZAC1YC2EA, blah, 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 all of that, that's my password. Or, well, the public part of the password. And that matches with this. This is the real password. MIIEPGIBAAKCAQEAZ5. You ever try to type that in? You don't type that in. That's the whole point. And we were talking about the kind of entropy that you get with a password that is generated that's like 20 characters long, you know? It takes millions of years. Days. Millions of days to crack that password. How many characters is this? Right? This is something like 40 characters per line. Per line. This is why it's so important. But your threat model changes, right? I mean, now you have to protect a file. Put it on flash drive, encrypt that flash drive. Got to have a password to get into that flash drive. But then when you get into that flash drive, you have all your keys. So threat model is a little different at that point, but that's really kind of the point. Anyway, so in Mint, get into your cockpit server on Ubuntu. (172.16.200.2:9090). And as I mentioned, Mint got reset, so none of that stuff gets remembered. Actually, I don't need to do that. Now, one of the cool things that you can do here is come down to accounts, check out your account, and you can see, there you go. You can actually view your public keys here in Cockpit. And surprise, here's another way to add them. Just copy paste your public key right there. And it'll add it just for you. So there are 3 ways that I've shown you. You can manually copy paste it from one text file to another. You can copy the file over and rename it. You can use Cockpit to copy your public SSH key. Or if you are looking through some of the original pointers and stuff, there is an easier way to do it than even any of this. I don't want you guys using this one, but for future reference, this is how you should do it. That's it. Let me see. SSH. I forget what I Googled. And I don't want Yahoo either. See, because they never actually. Maybe this is it. Because I'm looking for SSH copy ID. That's really what I'm looking for. Oh, stop. There it is. Oh, it doesn't tell you. Oh, and it's only here one time. Oh, there it is. Okay, I was just on the wrong page. So let's do this. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, it still doesn't show you how to do it. How funny. So anyway, basically you just do it like you're logging in over SSH. So if you do help. Oh, I didn't like that at all. Well, man, it doesn't like that at all. Oh, no, that did it right. Okay. So this is how you do it. Check out this usage. So SSH copy ID. You need to give it some options, but really it's just the identity file. So identity file is the public key. And then you don't need any of the other additional options. And that's it. So SSH copy ID -I. And this will be home mint sshidrsa.pub, and then it'll be Leo at. I don't want to do this because it's going to overwrite the key that I already have in there, but this is it. You basically say, this pub key needs to go to that computer at that user. And that replaces all of the steps that we had done to copy over the key itself. So there's a gajillion ways to get this job done. This SSH copy ID is, I won't say fairly new, but it's fairly new on a lot of distros like Ubuntu and CentOS that are very slow rolling. They don't do updates all the time. They just fix security issues, and everything continues to work for like 10 years. That's kind of the whole point of that stuff. But that's it. That's it. That's the fourth and easiest way to deal with keys. And if you want to wow people when you're dealing with keys, if you just remember SSH keygen and then SSH copy ID, you'll blow people's minds. Seriously. If they do key-based authentication, I've met so many people that don't know the SSH copy ID command, that should know it, that deal with keys every day and that manually move their keys. So if you can show people that command, I think, yeah, you're in like Flynn on that one. All right, so that last little bit was extra. You don't need to do the copy ID command, but it is something that you should know if you plan on doing a lot of keys from here on out. But there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's my key. That's the way that it works. So just as long as you're able to log in, you're good to go.